My name is Lindsay Dawson. I'm an American impressionist. I've been painting, drawing, creating all my life. Like every single kid that likes to draw and paint, I did. It was something I was always good at. I always remember my teachers holding up my art and saying, this is how it's supposed to be done. When I was in junior high and high school, art was the thing that I was engaged with. That's the thing I was the most passionate about. I loved it. Whether it was drawing or painting or model building or sculpture, just as long as it was creative. My mom actually gave me my first set of oil paints when I was 13, and my dad set up an area for me to paint in the garage. And I loved it. I loved the smell of it. I loved the viscosity of the paint. I loved the way you can blend it. And the artists that I idolized were all oil painters, so I really wanted to do that. And then in my high school years, two of the art teachers that taught at my high school were illustrators from the 50s. So they were from the golden age, and so they really knew their stuff. So I had a very, very good high school art program. In fact, I was admitted into the accelerated art program in high school. That was the only thing I was ever good at. I was no good at academics. It's the only thing that brought my grade point average up was my art classes. I wasn't a good athlete. I wasn't good at math or English or any of that. I was born with a certain kind of talent that allowed me to produce just about anything I wanted to produce visually. Took the plunge into commercial art after high school. I went into Art Center, and I mean, when I got to Art Center, it was an eye-opener because I got to see what it was like to be one of the good students. It was so frustrating going through school all those years as one of the bad students. Now as Art Center, I was usually one of the top 2 or 3 students in the class, and I got to see everybody else struggle with what I thought were simple concepts: advanced perspective, advanced composition, head painting, composition, color design, color theory, figure drawing, figure painting. No matter what the concepts were thrown at me, I understood them very easily and I could apply them very easily. But it took years and years and years to keep applying those and keep going to get to this level. So it was a set of skills that you're born with, but it's also a determination and a commitment. And I guess you're born with that too, the motivation to continue on regardless of what other people are saying about you. After I left Art Center, I started in the commercial art world, and my first job was in animation, Saturday morning animation. It was doing He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. From there, I moved into She-Ra, Transformers, G.I. Joe. But it was a great time because I was learning from other artists that were much older. We ran the gamut from 20 years old to 80 years old. Got to see a lot of the different arts, how production was done, and I did a lot of different productions in the animation field, from background design to laying out the animation to costume to color styling. So there's probably over several hundred shows I worked on. From there, I went to theme park design, and I did some theme park rides for Six Flags Magic Mountain. Did that for a few years, and then I also worked as an art director at Atari Games and some of the games there. All these were great, great learning experiences. They all built up the skills really, really well. And then a friend, just out of the blue, just called me up and said, would I be interested in having a show at the Disney Gallery? I said, yeah, let's make that happen, and they did, and we got the stuff up and had a nice show and got a lot of response, and that was the catalyst that projected me into my whole fine art career, that opened up the doors to fine art, that opened up the doors to me wanting to advance my own ideas and my own set of values and my own subject matter and my own style. So I've been a professional gallery painter since 1985. That was my first one-man show, and I've never looked back. It's the best career you can ever have. Nobody on the planet likes their career more than I do. All of us have fantasies about a more innocent life. A lot of my paintings are about that. They're about a simpler, more innocent life, that we have these wish lists, wish fulfillments in the paintings. In the early days of painting, my early days, I was trying to do a style. But the only way you really get a look is to not try to do your style. To just be yourself, paint the way you want to paint, and choose the subject matter you want to choose. And to some extent, the colors you choose. So I have a couple of signature colors that I love, and I have subject matter that I love, and then I also have the American impressionistic technique that I love. So you put all those together, and you get a Dawson. As an artist, usually you don't really think too much about your art when you're building your craft. But then after you build a body of work, you kind of look back on it, at least I do, and say, what are the things that holds all those paintings and all that body of work together? And if I had to boil it down to just two things, it would be innocence and beauty. Now, obviously, each painting has more things than that, but those are the basis, those are the foundation that I build every painting on. So if it's about children, obviously it's about an innocent childhood. Obviously, some kids don't have an innocent childhood, but those are the kind of children I'm interested in showing in my paintings. And if it's about a lighthouse at the beach, I want it to look beautiful and I want it to look innocent. And people say, well, how can you take innocence away from that view? Very simple. I mean, you can put a crowd on the beach, you can put graffiti on the rocks. That takes away the innocence of the scene right away. So I'm only interested in having those scenes that look innocent in beauty and advancing those things. You know, for thousands of years in art, beauty was the highest ideal in art. It's only been since the 1920s that artists have gone into this other crazy area of wanting to do ugly things. It boggles my mind why anybody would want to do that, but if they do it and they make a living at it, well, okay, that's art. Some of the emotions that I want people to feel when they're looking at my paintings are innocence, beauty, romance, sentiment, nostalgia, and also just joyful, happy feelings. I'd call myself an American impressionist because American impressionism took from other art forms and combined it with the impressionistic techniques and the impressionistic ideals and the impressionistic philosophies. Some of the people get confused when they think about impressionism. They think that's a technique in paint. It's just a series of techniques. And if that's all it was, we would call Boudin and Chardin and Turner and Constable impressionists because they were using their techniques 50 years prior to Monet and company. But along with those techniques, there was a philosophy with it. And that philosophy fits well with the way I look at art and the way I like to paint and the way I want to communicate and the subject matter that I pick. My major influences are all around me. A lot of times I'll just be outside, walking around. I won't be looking for a painting, but I will be thinking about a painting. So in a place like this is one of my favorite places in Colorado to come and just go walking around and looking around and just get inspired, just take the whole view in, just take the light in. You know, if I'm thinking about a painting idea, it's not necessarily about snow or red rocks or even mountain peaks, but I can get ideas about clouds and skies and the shadows and how blue they are. All sorts of ideas. And this is where the initial inspiration for a painting comes in. You can't just make yourself come up with an idea. It has to be inspired. And these kind of moments like this, moments at the beach with the kids, moments out with the family, maybe at a carousel, but moments like those that aren't necessarily I'm going to be painting right now are where I get the ideas for paintings. If I'm coming out to an area like this, I'm not hauling my paintings around, I'm not trying to set up for a painting, I'm not having my sketchbook. I'm just soaking it in and getting ideas for paintings. Very inspiring. When people look at my paintings, of course I want them to love it, but I don't want them to be mediocre about it. I want them to either love it or hate it. I don't want something in the middle, because if it's in the middle, people aren't going to be emotionally connected to it, and if they're not emotionally connected to it, they're not going to want it. A painting about a lighthouse or a child, it should be very clear what it is. It's great to hear about the thoughts behind the painting, but if the painting itself doesn't hold up on its own, I should be able to communicate that to anybody around the entire planet, what I want visually, right then and right there. It's the only way you're going to produce any kind of art that's going to have any kind of power to hang in people's homes and hopefully to continue on into the future. There's an alphabet, there's a language, the visual language, and there's things you can say in paint on canvas that you can't say in words, you can't say it in film, you can't say it in music. You can only say it through paint on canvas, and that's what I'm passionate about, that's what I love to do. You know, one of the things I'm asked a lot from collectors that visit my studio or to see me is, how long does it take you to do a painting? And so when we talk about a germ of an idea to completion, it could be, some of my paintings are 20 years. I had an idea for a girl with a sun umbrella looking up at a cherry tree in bloom. I had that 20 years ago, but I didn't think, I never found the right model, I never found the right cherry tree, I never found the right exact pose that I felt would make a good painting. But eventually I did, and it came out, I thought, really nice. And that was a 20-year process. So it would be hard for me to tell somebody, oh, that painting took me 2 weeks to do, because it doesn't. It's a lifelong commitment to the art of oil painting on canvas, and even just the actual technical process of putting paint on canvas. Forget about the process of actually getting the idea and the concept and the training and all that stuff, which is important and half the battle, but just laying down paint on canvas can be anywhere from 2 to 6 months, because that's all the paintings in my studio right now have been here for about 2 to 6 months. I build them up at least 4, 5, maybe 6 layers of paint until I'm happy with the finished process. Only a few things in my life that I love and passionate about: my wife, my kids, my painting, and I get to combine a lot of those things with each other. I love everything about art. I love everything about the art career, the art path. I like stretching canvases, I like gessoing canvases, I like going down to the art store and buying brushes. I like meeting other artists. They're great people that work in the arts. I appreciate it more now. And of course, I love painting. The process of painting is probably 90% of the satisfaction, and then I get another 10% of the satisfaction once it's complete, and especially once the painting connects with a collector that's out there. Once I hear stories that collectors tell me. I had a couple from Florida. They had a home in New York and they had a home in Florida. They went back and forth. And they said my painting was the only piece of furniture they took back and forth between the two homes, because they loved it so much. And those kind of stories that I hear from the collectors, it just makes my day. It's just like food for the soul. So it just keeps me going, keeps me painting. But it also keeps me painting just wanting to advance the subject matter and the techniques that I want to advance. I'm going to be having my 50th birthday this month, and I'm more excited about art than ever, because in Europe, if you're trained in Europe, they don't even consider you until you're in your 50s, because they want you to have that lifetime experience behind you. They want you to have that lifetime of building your art and your craft behind you. They want you to have so many decades behind you, and that you've committed all those decades up until you're 50. Now, okay, we'll look at that guy's art. So that's why I'm so excited about this next decade. You know, Monet, when he was 80 years old, was asked by an art critic, what's the best painting you ever painted? And he said, my next one. I've never forgotten that, because that's the way I feel. I feel like I know I can just advance this just a little bit more. I know I can do it, you know. So I'm always striving. I'm always reaching beyond what I think I'm capable of. Art is my life.